So a very good morning to all of you. I think it's going to be a total shift in the in your activity, in your brain activity as such. I think so. You've had for the past 4.5 days a lot of activity for your left brain, right? So much of logical thinking has gone in. So now I think our focus will shift to the right brain, right? So that is what the session is going to be all about. As Dr. Vidya pointed out, these in all FLFDPs, it's become mandatory to have this kind of a course, at least one session on human values or such topics. So thanks to Vidya for inviting me, for giving me this opportunity, to share some thoughts that I have with respect to universal human values. Whatever I'm sharing is basically what has been proposed by AICTE as a course that should be conducted, and this is based on some well-founded thoughts and so on. So I'll just share some of those things with you. Many of you who have attended some of these FDPs on universal human values may be familiar with the topics that I'm going to talk about. So for those of you who are already familiar with this may be like a refresher. So, and please feel free to ask any questions at any point of time. Okay. So I will now share my slides and I can start. Okay. Screen is visible. You're able to see the slide.
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, so this is a very generic topic, a very general topic also. So I would like some interaction from the participants. So please feel free to ask any questions, and even when I ask questions, please do answer those questions. They're all very simple questions, which are basically about ourselves. Okay. So for this session, I'm titling this the topic as Universal Human Values Based Mentoring of Students. This is an FDP, so all of us are faculty, so we are definitely interested in mentoring of students. So let's look at how this topic of human values can actually help us in that. So this is what we will look at from now. Okay, so when we talk of mentoring, so what are the expectations that we have from a mentor? So if we have some idea of that, it may, we can look at how this universal human values will actually help us in doing that. So Homer in Odysseus said it is a wise and trusted counselor. Okay, the very classic definition of what we expect from a mentor. So in academics, when we say mentor, we normally talk about a faculty advisor. So and we kind of equate the two, a faculty advisor and a mentor. But mentoring is definitely more than advising, right? So what exactly does mentoring mean? Okay. It is not just a professional relationship, it's actually a personal and a professional relationship. Okay. Secondly, you can look at mentoring as something which evolves with the needs or growth of the student. So it never remains static, right? The way we mentor, it kind of changes. It changes because of the growth in ourselves as well as because of the growth of the student or the person that we are mentoring, the mentee as such. So accordingly, definitely the way we do the mentoring will have to vary, right? The type of attention we give, the type of help we give, the degree of advice that we give, the kind of information that we would give, the encouragement that we would provide, all these things will vary depending on the person. Okay, and typically you can look at mentor as someone who takes a special interest in helping another person to develop into a successful professional and a humane being, right? So this is, I think, very important. So not only should our students become successful professionals, they should also become humane beings. So that's very, very important. So how do we make this happen? So that's something that we need to think about. So do we make it happen? How do we make it happen? All these are questions that we need to think within ourselves. So in general, models, the mentors as such are advisors, they are supporters, they are tutors, they are sponsors, and they are models of identity. Okay, so role models, as we say, right? So those are something that we need to think about. Okay. So what are the expectations typically from a mentoring relationship? So all these things that we talked about, right? All these are there as expectations. Other than this, what more do we expect? So in the mentoring relationship, it is what we look for is mutual respect, trust, understanding, and empathy. Okay, so this is something which is mutual, right? So this is what we need in the relationship. The relationship, when we talk about it, always is something which is mutual, right? So we are looking for mutual respect, trust, understanding, and empathy. Now, what do good mentors do? Typically, they share their life experiences and wisdom as well as the technical expertise. So this is something that we need to, understand and internalize. So do we share life experiences and wisdom as well as the technical expertise? Third is, mentors are expected to be good listeners. So good observers and good problem solvers. So when we say problem solving, it is not only technical problem solving, but problem solving in life as such, right? So how is it that mentors can help it? And mentors are expected to make an effort to know, accept, and respect the goals and interests of the student or the mentee. Okay, this is also important. The question that comes up is, are we really equipped to meet these expectations? You can see that the expectations are not small, right? They are lofty expectations actually at one level. At one level, they are very basic expectations. Okay? So but the question remains as to whether we are really equipped to meet these expectations. Can I have some response on this? Do you feel we are equipped to meet these expectations? Any response? Yes, no? Don't put it in the chat because I'm not looking at the chat. I'm doing a full screen display.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes. Okay. So what are the benefits of mentoring? So definitely there are some benefits, right, to whatever we do. So what's the benefit of mentoring as such? So it kind of fulfills a natural human desire to share knowledge and experience. I'm sure all of you would have had this, right? The moment you, especially as teachers, the moment we read something new, you have this urge to go and share it with your students. So if you learned, and I'm sure now that you're all learned so much about quantum computing and content cryptography, there's always this urge to want to, to go and share it with your research scholars, with your students. You would definitely like somebody to start working on it, So those are kind of things that happen. So there's this natural human desire to share knowledge and experience. And there is this, and when you do that, when you mentor and you do this sharing and you mentor the students, there's definitely a satisfaction or joy when you see the students succeed, okay, and become a friend and become a colleague and so on. Of course, it helps in networking. It helps you to stay up to date in your field, because when you mentor, there's a lot more that you get from your students rather than even what you give to the students. So it helps us to stay up to date in our fields, and also extends our contribution. Our results of good mentoring will live much after us. Okay, these are some of the benefits that we have. So the question is, if we are equipped for doing the job of mentoring. So if we are not equipped, where do we go to equip ourselves? So is there some kind of, what do you say, some kind of program that I can attend where I can learn all these things? So the question, and can we say that I'm fully equipped, at any point of time? Yes, I can handle all the mentoring challenges that are there. So personally, I would say, I don't think I can ever say that I'm fully equipped, because it's an evolving process. So challenges are new, the way we handle the challenges are new, and students are new, so their expectations are different. Each relationship that we have is very, very different. So it's a completely evolving process. But in that evolving process, are there some guidelines? How do we really, prepare ourselves for this? Okay, so what do we need to do for that? So what we need to do for that is we need to explore. Where do we explore? It's basically self-exploration. Like you have to explore within yourself, right? So how do we do self-exploration? This is where you're looking at seeing if this universal human values can help us do this exploration. Okay. So this content that I'm presenting now is an approach that has been proposed for value education, a universal approach for value education. So we will look at this approach in detail for the next 1 hour or so. But I can't say in detail, at least an overview of this approach is what we'll look at for the next 1 hour. And from that, we'll get some kind of an idea of how this universal human value can help us in terms of becoming effective mentors or taking this forward. Okay. Okay, so let's get into this universal human values and this approach towards providing mentorship, which is basically when you're combining your technical education with this kind of a value-based approach. We call it as value education, right? So that is what we're going to look at now. Okay, so first of all, a disclaimer. Okay, whatever is said is just a proposal. Okay, you do not have to accept it to be true just because I'm saying it or anybody is saying it or it is being presented to you. Okay, it is a proposal. So you please explore it within yourself on the basis of your natural acceptance. Now this term natural acceptance is a little important here. So what we mean by natural acceptance is that it should be something which you're able to accept without any conditions. Right? Often there are a lot of conditioning that has happened in us. Okay, and because of certain conditioning, we kind of tend to accept certain things. So when we say natural acceptance, forget all conditioning, try to remove all the conditioning. In the natural state, as a human being, if you're able to accept it, then we say it is a natural acceptance. So we are going to explore whatever is being proposed now, whatever proposal I'm going to keep in front of you. Please explore it within yourself on the basis of your natural acceptance. And if it is acceptable to you, then you can work with the proposal. Okay. Let's start with a few questions that we ask within ourselves. So what is it that we all want? Okay, what do we all want? Okay, let's examine that within ourselves. Okay. Let me ask you a few questions. Do we want to be happy? Okay. A few answers, please.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
The second question, do we want to be prosperous?
Yes. Yeah, obviously, yes, ma'am.
Yes, obviously, yes, we want to be prosperous. So do we want the continuity of happiness and prosperity?
Sure.
Yes. Sure, right? We want to be happy, we want to be prosperous, we want the continuity of happiness and prosperity. Right? That's what we want. Now, let's ask this question. Are we happy? Okay. Are we prosperous? And is there continuity of our happiness and prosperity? Okay. Answers, please. Yes, no, not sure.
Obviously, no, ma'am.
So now the next question. Set of questions is our effort, the effort that we are putting in, right? Is our effort for the continuity of happiness and prosperity? Or is it just for accumulation of physical facility? The effort that we put in our life, right, for doing various things, is it for the continuity of happiness and prosperity? Or is it just for accumulation of physical facility? Let me ask one more question. Or have you assumed that happiness and prosperity will automatically come when you have enough physical facility? For many of us, if you think about it, right, many of us would have assumed that happiness and prosperity will automatically come when I have enough physical facility. So we concentrate more on physical facility, on accumulation of physical facility, rather than do the effort for the continuity of happiness and prosperity. So often we have not even really thought much about what is happiness and prosperity, right? So those are questions to think about. Okay. Now, in addition to this, let's ask ourselves one more question. Is human relationship important?
Yes.
For humans, is relationship important? Yes. Okay. Now, let's ask ourselves a few more questions. Other than physical facility, what else does a human being think about? We definitely think about physical facilities, right? We definitely need some physical facilities. So we think about that. So other than physical facility, what does a human being normally think about? I'll give you some clues, right? Okay, or rather, I'll give you the answer itself. So if you look at it very closely, right? If you look at the thoughts that are there in us, the thoughts can generally be classified into two categories. One is with respect to feelings in relationship with other human beings, and with respect to right understanding in the self, within yourself, right? You want to have some understanding. So you think within yourself about gaining knowledge, about understanding things. And we also are worried about feelings of relationship with other human beings. Okay. So human beings definitely think about gaining physical facilities. You know, you need a house, you need food to eat, right? You talk about physical facilities that we need. We talk about, having good relationship with other human beings, positive feelings in the relationship with other human beings, and having an understanding in yourself. So human beings always think about ensuring this, right? So if you look at the necessities for a human being, you can look at these three things. Physical facility, which basically comes from the rest of the nature, from the nature basically. Right understanding, which is within yourself, and relationship is with other human beings. So if you look at this, there are three aspects that you can look at over here. Something is happening within yourself, something is happening with other human beings, and something is happening with the rest of the nature. Right? So, or at all aspects, there is something that is necessary for a human being. Okay. So of all these three, right? Right understanding, relationship, and physical facility, all three are necessary, right? So what would be the priority between them? So examine within yourself, what is the priority of these for you? I would like an answer for this. Okay, of these three, what is the priority? Physical facility, right understanding, and relationship. Which would be 1, which would be 2, which would be 3? Some answers, please.
Physical facility is 1.
Okay.
Right understanding is 2.
Okay.
Then relationship is 3.
Okay. That is how it is for you. Okay, good. Okay. Anybody else?
I'll go for
I should be go for the same one. The first one is physical facility, and second one is right understanding, and third one is nothing but the relationship with the
that's the
other
priority.
human beings.
Okay, good. Somebody else?
Yeah, ma'am, I'll go for the second one first, the right understanding.
Okay.
Then we'll go for physical facility and then the relationships.
Okay, and then the relationship. Very good. Okay. Anybody else? Any other sharing?
It's a relationship and then understanding and then physical facility.
Okay. Very good. Okay. So we have all possibilities, I think. Right? Okay, good. I'm sure others will fall into some of these categories. Okay, let's understand this a little bit more. Okay. Okay. So now let's say your priority is like this. If you have right understanding in the self as priority 1, okay, and relationship with human beings as priority 2, and physical facility as priority 3. Okay. So we say that this will lead to mutual happiness and mutual prosperity. Okay, we said that everybody wants to be happy and prosperous. Okay. Now remember that as I want to be happy and prosperous, so does the other. Okay, everybody wants to be happy and prosperous. So what we actually need is mutual happiness and mutual prosperity, right? So how will that mutual happiness and prosperity come? That will come only if our priorities, okay, are slightly different. So what is the priority which will lead to mutual happiness and prosperity? So let's look at that. Okay. So if right understanding in the self is there, okay, what I mean by right understanding is I have a right understanding of what it means to be in relationship with human beings. I have a right understanding of what is the physical facility that I actually need. Okay, and how will it come from nature? How do I take it from nature? Right? So if I have a right understanding in the self, and with that right understanding, if I approach relationship and if I approach physical facility, then it will lead to mutual happiness and mutual prosperity. This is a proposal. Okay, I'm not saying that this is how it is. This is a proposal. Okay, please think about this proposal. If right understanding were to be priority number 1, and I approach relationship with that priority, with that understanding, it will lead to mutual happiness. Okay? Similarly, with the right understanding the self, if I approach physical facility, it will lead to mutual prosperity. Let me give you an example. Okay, especially with respect to physical facility. Now, when my priority is only physical facility, right, or my first priority is physical facility, then I go on accumulating physical facility. Okay, so in the process, what I could do is I could take much more of physical facility than I need. And where is this physical facility coming from? It's coming from nature, right? It's coming only from the resources that are available around us. So if I take more than what I need, there are two things that are happening there, right? One is you're depleting the nature. There are depletion of resources taking place in nature. And you're also taking away what somebody else could use. So you are becoming prosperous, but you may be depriving others of their prosperity. Okay? So this is something to think about. Okay. So now, if physical facility becomes our first priority, what it leads to is a feeling of deprivation. Because you always feel that I need more. I feel deprived. You feel you don't have enough. Whereas your goal is, or what we want actually is prosperity. But when our focus is on physical facility, thinking that physical facility is what is giving me my, giving me what I need, actually what could happen is that it could lead to deprivation. And when you focus so much on physical facility, what happens is that you do not focus enough on relationship. And remember that happiness basically comes because of the relationship. It's relationship with other human beings, which leads to happiness. So when that happens, when our focus is on physical facility and not on relationship, what happens is that the time that we spend for relationship decreases, and when that decreases, then that leads to unhappiness. Okay. And physical facility, if you look at, okay, for animals, typically physical facility is something which is necessary and complete. But for human beings, physical facility is necessary, but it's not complete. We also need relationship and right understanding, and that is what will lead towards happiness and prosperity. So when our focus is more on physical facility, we find that it leads to unhappiness. It leads to deprivation. Okay. So this is something to think about. Okay. So instead, if we have right understanding in the self, and we focus on getting this right understanding so that we are able to approach relationship with other human beings with that right understanding. Similarly, if you're able to approach physical facility, which comes from the rest of the nature with the right understanding, then we say that it will lead to mutual happiness and mutual prosperity. Okay. So let's understand what we mean by prosperity. Okay, to see when we say mutual prosperity and so on, let's understand what we mean by prosperity. Okay. So prosperity, this again is a proposal. Okay, every definition that we talk about here is a proposal, right? You can think about it and accept it if you find it is okay. That is if it is naturally acceptable. Okay. Prosperity, we say, is the feeling of having more than the required physical facility. Okay, when you feel prosperous, when you feel that you have more than what you need, right? So which means there are two aspects to it. One is you should know what is the required physical facility. And second is you must have this feeling of having more than the required physical facility. Okay, so physical facility is all objects around us. Okay, the food we eat, the dresses we wear, the clothes we buy, the equipment we have, communication devices that we have, everything is physical facility. Okay, all that is something which which contributes to our prosperity. Okay. So there are two aspects here. One is I should know, to feel prosperous, I should first of all know what my required physical facility is. Okay, I should be able to assess the necessary physical facility along with their required quantity. Okay. Amount, I need a house, right? How many houses do I need? Okay, I need one house, right? So if I understand the purpose of the house, I understand what exactly I need, right? So you need to understand what physical facilities we need along with the right quantity. And for this, we need the right understanding. Okay, this is where the right understanding comes in. Similarly, second thing is, I also need to ensure that we are able to produce more than the required physical facility. Right? That's it. Yeah, I'm in a meeting here. Meeting. So you need to ensure that you produce more than the required physical facility in order to have this feeling of more than required physical facility. Only when you have more than the required, you will feel that you have more than the required physical facility, right? So we have to ensure that we are able to produce more than the required physical facility. So there are two things that are required, right? So first is understand and assess the physical facility that is required along with the quantity, and you should be able to, you should have a mechanism to produce more than the required physical facility. These are two things which are required. So typically what happens is a prosperous person, when you have this feeling of prosperity, you think of nurturing the other, which means you think of sharing with the others. You would like to share with the others. A deprived person thinks of exploiting the other. When you feel deprived, right, when you feel that you don't have something and somebody has it, you feel you should get it from the other person. Either you should get it from somewhere else or you should get it from the other person. There's always this thought of exploiting the other that comes in when you feel deprived. But a prosperous person, when you feel prosperous, you always think of nurturing the other person, right? Sharing with the other person. So this is what we mean, how we try to look at prosperity. So obviously here, now which means to find out what my necessary physical facilities are, okay, I need to have this right understanding. So where does this right understanding come from? Okay, that's something that we need to look at. We'll take a look at it a little shortly, okay. Now coming back to our these three things that we talked about, right? Right understanding the self, relationship with human beings, and physical facility with the rest of nature. So once if our focus is only on physical facility, right? So we say that we are almost living in animal consciousness or with animal consciousness. Whereas if our focus is on right understanding the self, and we are using that right understanding in our relationship with human beings and in our relationship with the rest of the nature, which leads to mutual happiness and mutual prosperity, we say that we are living with human consciousness. So our goal is that if we are living only with animal consciousness, we should be able to transform ourselves to live with human consciousness. Okay, this transformation is what we call as development. And all our education that we have should help this development to take place. Okay, so let's see what our education therefore is expected to do. Okay. So this again is another proposal which gives a definition of education. So we say that the role of education is to facilitate the development of the competence to live with definite human conduct by enabling this transformation, by ensuring all three. What are the three things we look at? Right understanding, relationship, and physical facility in every human being. Now, when we talk of definite human conduct, let me just spend a few minutes trying to explain what we mean by definite human conduct. Okay. Now, in general, okay, there are three things that we talk about, things that we could be afraid of. So, are we afraid of now what are the things that we are normally afraid of? Are we afraid of things like things that come from nature, right? A tsunami that happens, or a cyclone that comes, floods that happen. Are we afraid of these? Question number one. Okay, I'll give you three questions and then you can think about it. Question number two. Are we afraid of animals? The behavior of animals, or the behavior of plants. Something that's happening because of plants that I'm afraid of. Something that's happening because of animals that I'm afraid of. Okay, are we afraid of those? Right. Third thing, are we afraid of the inhuman behavior of human beings? Of these three, which are we more afraid of? We're afraid of all three, right? We may be afraid of all three. Which are we more afraid of? Which frightens us more? Which is the one that we cannot handle properly? Is it the inhuman behavior of human beings, or is it these kind of calamities that happen in nature, or some wild animals that could attack us? What is it that is more scary for us?
Calamities in nature.
Pardon?
Calamities nature.
Calamity of nature. Okay. Calamity of nature and as compared with inhuman behavior of human beings. Okay. Any other answers?
Inhuman behavior, madam.
Inhuman behavior is one answer. Okay.
Yes.
So often we'll find that, if you look at it a little deeper, look at things that disturb us. We hear about a young girl, a young child, being raped. We find this often in the newspapers. Does it disturb us? The answer would be yes, right?
Yes.
Is it a human behavior or an inhuman behavior that is leading to this? Right? I mean, I don't want to give more of such examples, but just to give you an indication of what we mean by, it's an extreme case of inhuman behavior, but we find such inhuman behavior of human beings or indefinite behavior because we do not know when a human being is going to behave in a particular manner, right? You know that an animal has a particular behavior. It depends on its breed. Similarly, if you take a plant, you know that it is going to behave in a particular manner. If you sow a mango seed, it will only give you a mango tree. Whereas when you look at a human being, we really do not know how they are going to behave. Okay. So what exactly defines a human being's behavior? It normally is based on their education. When I say education is not only about getting a degree, going to school, getting a learning something, learning maths, physics, chemistry, and doing that. But you're talking about education, which gives you this ability or gives you the competence to live with definite human conduct. Okay, so that you're able to have the right understanding in the self, you're able to have a proper relationship with other human beings, and also learn how to take the physical facility from the nature in order to live properly. Okay, so this is what we say should our education provide. That our education should provide. So education basically should help us in developing that right understanding. So with that right understanding, it should help us to practice right living. It should give us a commitment for right living. It should prepare us for right living. So when you say right living includes all the skills, all the technology that we are talking about. Okay. Often in our education, we focus on this right skills and right technology, but we don't focus on this right understanding. Okay. So when you are able to focus on this right understanding along with this, then we say that we are providing value-based education. Often this value is something that is missing in our education. Okay. So when we say value-based education, so we need to understand what we mean by value of a human being. Okay. So when we talk of this term value, okay, what does value actually mean? If you take a pen, okay, what is the value of a pen? Value of a pen is not that my pen costs 100 rupees or 10 rupees. The value of the pen is that it can be used for writing. That is the value of the pen. Its purpose, right? Similarly, what is the value of a human being? So if you see any object, if you look at its value is how useful it is, what is its purpose with respect to the rest of the world, right? Similarly, what is the value of a human being? What is the purpose of a human being with respect to the rest of the world? Now we said that every human being wants to be happy and prosperous. And we also looked at what is prosperity. Okay, we looked at a proposal which talks about what is prosperity. Now I'm going to give you a proposal which talks about what is happiness and try to understand what the value of a human being is from that aspect. Okay. So happiness, we say, is to be in harmony. Okay. And to be in harmony at different levels. Okay, if you look at yourself, a human being, if you look at the expanse of our being, okay, we exist in the self as an individual, we exist in the family, we exist as part of society, and we exist as part of nature and existence. Okay, so just think about this. Do you live with this expanse or not? Obviously, yes, right? We are living as an individual, as part of a family, as part of society, and as part of nature. Okay. So the air we breathe, it comes from the nature. We obviously live in society, we live in family. So we definitely live with this expanse. Whether you are aware of it or not, you are part of all these four levels. Okay. So now we say happiness is basically to be in harmony at all levels of our being. Okay, that is what will lead to continuous happiness. So remember, we talked about not only wanting to be happy and prosperous, but wanting to have continuity of happiness and prosperity. So if you want continuous happiness happens when you are in harmony at all levels. Harmony in the self, harmony in the family, harmony in the society, and harmony in nature and existence. Okay. So if we understand what it means to be in harmony at all these levels, that would lead to continuous happiness. And this content on universal happiness basically gives us proposals to understand this harmony. Okay. So if you understand this harmony and it based on that, if you're able to move towards happiness and move towards being happy and prosperous, right? So that will lead us to leading a valuable life. So where you are making sure that you are living in this expanse in a meaningful manner. Okay? So this is what we are going to be looking at. And to understand this harmony, okay, this process, how do we understand this? Understand this harmony, we are basically going to look at a particular process. The process is one of understanding and is one of self-exploration and self-investigation. Okay, it is a process of dialogue. Initially, it's a process of dialogue between you and me, in the sense that I am asking you, giving you some proposals, asking you some questions, asking you to think about it and tell me. Eventually, what actually happens is it becomes a dialogue within your own self. Okay. Within yourself, it's a dialogue between what I am and what I really want to be. Okay, what I am is currently what I am. What I really want to be is based on my natural acceptance. What is it that I really want to be? Okay, so let me give you an example for this. So suppose I ask you, do you want to be in relationship or opposition? Do you want to have relationship with everybody or opposition with everybody? What will be naturally acceptable? So what is naturally acceptable to all of us would be that we want to be in relationship. We don't want to be fighting with people, right? You want to be in relationship with people. So natural acceptance, forget any other conditions, okay? Unconditionally, if you look at yourself, what is naturally acceptable is being in relationship. But if you look at what you are currently, sometimes you're in relationship, sometimes in opposition. With some people we are in relationship, with some people we are in opposition. Even with the same person, sometimes we are in relationship, sometimes we are in opposition. But where would I really like to be? You want to be in relationship, right? So the dialogue that actually happens is between where you are, what I am, and what I really want to be. So harmony, we said, is something which is going to lead us to happiness, right? So if I am in relationship, I would say it will lead to happiness. Okay. If I have happiness in the relationship, so I'm not only looking at happiness with respect to myself, right? I'm looking at mutual happiness. I'm looking at relationship. So I'm looking at not only myself, I'm looking at the other person also. And I'm looking at me being happy and the other person being happy, right? So I need to understand this happiness. So happiness, we said, is to be in a state of harmony. And you can look at unhappiness as to be forced to be in a state of contradiction. So normally unhappiness does not happen just like that, right? It happens because you're forced to go in the state of contradiction. Okay, this again is a proposal. You can think about it. I know that this is a very short time to think and debate and understand these things very deeply, but I just like to place these proposals in front of you and provide you with a particular thought process so that you can explore further on it. Okay, so I'm just going to move on to the next thing. So what I'm saying is happiness is to be in a state of harmony, and we want to, and our what is naturally acceptable to us is to be in a state of harmony. Okay, but where I am currently, I may not be in a state of harmony. So, but I would like to move to a state of harmony. That's our process. Okay, so as he said, whatever is said is a proposal, right? You look at it, put it through this process of self-verification, and you verify on the basis of your natural acceptance. If you find it is acceptable to you, then you can validate it experientially by living according to it. both with respect to the behavior with other human beings, see if it leads to mutual happiness. Similarly, use this with rest of nature, work with the rest of nature using these proposals, see if it leads to mutual prosperity. If it leads to mutual happiness and mutual prosperity, that means you have that proposal has become a realization, you're able to understand it. If it becomes part of your understanding, then you can live accordingly and it will lead to mutual happiness and mutual prosperity. So you do not have to accept it just because it is written in some book or it's a reading from some instrument or it is stated by some person, but you can verify it based on your own experience and your own understanding. Now, what I'm going to talk to you about briefly is about harmony at these 4 levels that we talked about. Okay, so harmony in the self, harmony in the family, harmony in society, and harmony in nature. Okay, I'll focus a little bit more on harmony on the first 2, and we may not have time to cover the other 2 in detail, but I'll give you a glimpse of what it is. Okay, but it will be quite easy to follow what it is. Okay. Right. So let's look at harmony in the human being. Okay. Now, the human being you can look at as the coexistence of the self and the body. Okay. Now, without getting into anything philosophical or whatever, we can just distinguish between what the body is and what the self is. Okay. So body, basically, you can look at it as it's your physical body, right? Which constitutes of your all the organs that we have and so on. Okay. And the self you can look at as something which is different from the body. Everything with respect to your mind, your feelings, all that let us put it under self. Okay. The body you can look at it as your physical body. Okay. So if you look at it like this, you can look at the human being. This is a model, right? You can look at the human being as a model, as this model, as something which is a coexistence of self and body. So now, if I now try to understand the needs of the human being in terms of the needs of this body and the needs of the self. All of us have needs, right? So it's to fulfill those needs that we are doing various things. So let's look at this, understand this need, and let's look at what are the needs of the body and what are the needs of the self. Now, the needs of the body are things like physical facilities, food, right? You need food to sustain your body. You need clothes in order to protect yourself from cold and from heat and so on, right? So all those are physical facilities are something which are needs of the body. The needs of the self, if you look at, needs of the self are things like happiness, respect, feelings, nice feelings. So all those things are the needs of the self. Okay. Similarly, if you look at these needs with respect to the body, these needs of the body are normally temporary, which means you feel hungry now. But I give you food to eat. Once your food is taken in and your hunger is satiated, you stop feeling hungry. You don't need any more physical facility, right? You don't need any more food. You can eat 2 rasgullas, if you're feeling, you like rasgullas, let's say, you can eat 2 rasgullas. If I give you 10 rasgullas, maybe you'll still eat it. If I give you 100 rasgullas, you won't be able to eat it, right? So in terms of quantity also, the amount of food that we can take is also limited, right? But if you look at the needs of the self, which is happiness. Now, is happiness something which is temporary? Your need of happiness, is it temporary? No, right? You always want to be happy. It's continuously that you would like to be happy. Okay. Similarly, can you measure the amount of happiness and say, oh, 10 rasagullas, so similarly 10 amounts of, 10 ounces of happiness? Nothing like that, right? It's a qualitative thing. It's not a quantitative. Okay, the body's needs are quantitative. The self's needs are qualitative. Now, how are these needs fulfilled? If you look at that also, the needs of the body are fulfilled by means of some physiochemical things. Okay, some things which come from nature, right? You can describe it using some physics and chemistry, right? But the needs of the self are fulfilled by means of right understanding and right feelings, which don't come from these physical things. Okay, so you can see that the needs are of different types. Okay? Now, are both types of needs important or not? Do we want fulfillment of both types of needs? The answer would be yes, definitely. I need to fulfill the needs of my body as well as the needs of myself. Okay, both are necessary, right? If both are necessary, what should be the priority between them? That is something to think about. Now, let's look at some activities of this. Okay, so the activities of the body, okay, are things like eating, walking, and so on. Okay, Now, these activities also are temporary. You're not going to be eating all the time. You're not going to be walking all the time. You're not going to be sleeping all the time either, right? So all the activities are temporary. Whereas if you look at the activities of the self, they are of the nature of desire, thought, and expectation. Okay? So this process of desire, thought, and expectation is happening continuously in us. There's some thought or the other that's happening in your mind, some desire that's happening in your mind. Okay, something or the other that's happening in the self. Okay, and these are fulfilled, these activities get completed through a process of knowing, assuming, recognizing, and fulfilling. Whereas the activities of the body, right, they are fulfilled by means of you have to recognize that activity. There is some hunger, there is some kind of a feeling that comes in you, a physical feeling, right? You recognize that and you fulfill that. Okay, that's what happens with respect to the body's activity. So you can see that the activities of the body and the self are also different. Their needs are different, their activities are different. So when I have a desire, so what we need to therefore understand is, when I have a desire, okay, can I distinguish it as whether is it the need of my body or the need of myself? So why do I need to do this distinguishing, right? That also we need to, understand that. So if you look at it, you can see that the needs of my body are quantitative, whereas the needs of myself are qualitative. Okay. Now, can I satisfy the need of the self, which is a qualitative need, by means of a quantitative object? Right? There is a discord there, right? Often what we do is we mistake the two. We kind of merge the two, right? We don't distinguish between the two. So we think that I can derive happiness by eating, so much of good food or whatever. What the needs of the body I'm fulfilling, but I'm thinking that the need of the body will automatically fulfill the need of myself. Okay, there is some kind of a discord that happens over there. So to understand that, let's see if we can look at our desires and see whether it is the need of the body or need of the self, of the I. Any question? Anybody has any question? Okay, so to do that, what we can do is, one way to explore within ourselves is to clarify the underlying purpose. Let's say I want a house. Okay, suppose I say, why do I need this house? If I say that I need the house in order to show it to the others, okay, I want somebody to look at this house. So it's a need of I, it's a need of the self. If I say I want a house to provide protection, it is need of the body. Okay. So you can see that for every desire of ours, we can always look a little deeper and identify whether it's a need of I or need of the body. Okay. Now some needs will be for both I and for the body. Okay, but then you can reflect on it as to what is the primary need. Okay, that will kind of help us to think about our needs. So once you do that, you can also check out for yourselves, right, as to what is the percentage of needs of the I versus percentage of needs of the body. Okay, what is the percentage of needs of my I versus percentage of needs of the body? Okay, this is an exercise that you'll actually have to do. It'll take about an hour or so. You can think about all your needs and you can classify it and see how it works out. So then you ask yourself, what is the percentage of effort that I'm putting in for physical facility? Okay, what is the percentage of my needs of the body, needs of the self? You will often find out that when you write out your desires and needs, you'll find that the percentage of needs of I is much larger than the percentage of needs of the body. Okay. When you look at your effort that you're putting in, okay, physical facility, how much of effort are we putting in for physical facility? I must earn so much money so that I can get a house, so that I can get a car, so I can do this. I can go on, whatever, some various things, physical things that I can get, right? How much of effort is going for physical facility is something that we need to look at. Because we also have to understand that the physical facility can only fulfill the needs of the body, not the needs of the self. Okay. So if you are able to do that, you can evaluate or make a program, okay, to fulfill the needs of your I. Now, where will happiness come from? Where will prosperity come from? So those are our two questions that we keep asking ourselves, right? So with respect to that, your happiness is something that will come from your I, from the self. Okay, prosperity will come when you have enough facilities to take care of the needs of your body. Okay, so if we understand these two, we will be able to get our priorities right in terms of how much I need for the body, how much I need for the self, where should I spend my time and effort, right? These are things that become important. Now, if you look at your desires, going a little bit deeper into understanding our desires, you will find that the desires come due to three different reasons. Okay, the desire can come because of some preconditioning, or the desire can come out of sensation, or the desire can come out of natural acceptance. Okay, so preconditioning would mean that there are a lot of things that we are conditioned to thinking, because we keep seeing some things, think, oh, that's the way it has to be done. You're preconditioned to accept certain things. Certain things happen only out of sensation. Okay, if you see some nice ice cream, whatever, and you feel like eating it, it's a sensation, right? So it's a sensation that drives this. Sometimes that drives the desire. Sometimes the preconditioning which drives the desire. Sometimes it is natural acceptance which drives the desire. Okay, so for all our needs, our desires, we can actually do this exploration to find out what is it that is actually driving us. Again, we'll take the same example of a house, but we will look at how to do this this exploration. Okay, so for this, you have to, for each notion, let us look at the underlying assumption. Okay, so we said we want a house. Okay, now let's look at it and say, suppose I say I want a nice house. Okay, what do we mean by that nice? If you say the nice houses, a nice house means a house which is comparatively better than other houses. Okay, my house is nice because better than my neighbor's house. Okay, if it is that, if your nice means comparatively better than other houses, that is because of preconditioning. Okay, because that's how we have been conditioned to think about nice. Nice, okay, it has to be better than somebody else. That's a precondition, right? If you say nice house means a luxurious house, I need to have a swimming pool, I need to have a jacuzzi, I need to have all these things, right? So that is sensation. It's driven by sensation, right? If you say nice house as something which provides protection, okay, it should be a green house. Okay, it should have the required amount of sunlight. It should provide me the required amount of breeze, proper ventilation. It should provide proper protection. Okay, if that is what I mean by a nice house, then that comes out of natural acceptance. Because you understand the purpose of the house. The purpose is to provide protection for us, right? So if it is to provide protection, if you understand that underlying assumption, then that comes out of natural acceptance. Okay, so like this, for every single desire of ours, we can identify whether it comes from preconditioning, sensation, or natural acceptance. Now, if it comes from natural acceptance, okay, then that would lead, if you have the right understanding, right? If you have the right understanding of your desire, it will come from natural acceptance. If you're able to identify that it is only sensation or it is only a precondition, so then you can move away from preconditioning and sensation and move towards natural acceptance so that you are able to do things with the right understanding. So you can find out also if your needs that you have identified like that can be fulfilled by means of right understanding, relationship, or physical facilities, or if anything more is needed. Okay. For example, what I am, okay, relationship. Okay, if this is my need, my need is I want relationship, I want respect. Okay, those things can be fulfilled by means of right understanding. To ensure right feelings, I want my desire is I want to ensure right feelings, and then for that you need right understanding and you need feeling in the relationship. Suppose you say I want proper food, good food. It means it requires right understanding plus physical facility. Only then that particular need will be satisfied. So like this, you can explore into every single desire of yours and see how it will get fulfilled. Okay, so this helps us to develop the right understanding about our needs. Okay. So then, if you do this, then we can look at how to understand the harmony between the self and the body. So we said that we want to have harmony in the self, right? So you can look at harmony in the self as actually three parts. You can have harmony in the body, harmony in the self, and harmony between the self and the body. Okay. So between self and body, if you look at, I see these two coexist, right? So typically, how does this coexistence happen? This coexistence happens by the body giving certain information, okay, or giving certain indications to the self, and the self giving instructions to the body to do certain things. Okay, basically the signals that go from the body to the self, and the self gives instructions to the body. That's one way of understanding. Okay, so what are the role of these two? So the body, you can see, is material stuff. The self is consciousness. Okay, the body's needs and activities are temporary. Self's needs and activities are continuous. We already talked about this. Now the body, when you talk about harmony in the body is that the body maintains a healthy body. Healthy body is the body being in harmony. So what is the meaning of healthy body? The different parts of the body are in harmony. Okay, they're all in order. Okay, and when will that happen? And that will happen when the body is acting according to the I, to the self. So what is the self's role over there, or responsibility over there? The self is the one which is responsible for nurturing, protecting, and right utilization of the body. So the self is the one that is going to be using the body, right? So it uses the body. So it has to take care of nurturing the body. It has to provide the right kind of food it needs, right kind of protection it needs, and so on. Right? It needs to provide the protection. It needs to provide right utilization of the body. What I mean by right utilization of the body is you should know how to use your body. You must not abuse your body. Right? Right utilization of the body. Who is responsible for that? The self is responsible for that. So the self has to take responsibility for the body, and the body will have to listen to the self. Once that happens, we say that there'll be a harmony between the self and the body. Okay. Once that happens, see, if you say, for instance, see things like, okay, let's say, let's look at the use of some of the equipment that we have. Okay. So let's say we have a vehicle, we have a car. The car is useful for long distance travel, let's say. Okay. So now, why do I need the car? Because the self has thought of a right utilization of the body. If I have to go from here to New Delhi, I can't walk. Okay, the body cannot go walking. It can walk, but it will take a very long time. It will be very stressful on the body. So instead, the self is able to come up with a mechanism, come up with something called a car, and says, okay, you can use the car to transport yourself from here to there. So use of a vehicle in that sense is a right utilization of the body. Okay. Okay, let's say the same thing. It's a short distance that you have to go to. You may not need a vehicle for that. Right? You could walk. That could be a right utilization of the body because it leads to exercise for the body. Okay. So how do you maintain health? What are the things that you need to do to maintain health? All those things will have to be decided by a right understanding of what are the needs of the body and how is it that the self can give directions for the body to understand those things. Okay. So this is how we need to understand the harmony within the self. You understand the harmony within the self, within the I, within the body, between the two, and see how you don't mix up the requirements of one as the requirements of the other. See, often what happens is the body's requirement is temporary, but we think that it is continuous, and we try to think that that is what is going to satisfy the self. Okay. So this disconnect, when it is there, that leads to unhappiness. It leads to a feeling of not being satisfied at all. Okay. So those are some things that we need to understand. Okay. This is an overview of the proposal related to harmony within the self. Okay. Next, we'll look at harmony in family. Please remember that it's a very large topic, but I'm just giving you an overview. So I'm just going to give you some things, some pointers basically. I would definitely urge all of you to attend a complete FDP, which is 5-day FDP on human values itself, right? So it's a full topic in itself. So you will look at all these details much more if you are able to go into that. Okay. But anyway, so right now this glimpse should help you to at least start thinking about these things. So let's look at harmony in family. Now, harmony in family is about understanding relationships. Okay. So let's look at what we mean by understanding relationships. Now, relationship is, right, which means it exists. Whether you accept it or not, relationship exists between a self and the other self. And when you feel that you're related to your friend or your mother, father, whoever it is. So the relationship is there, right? There is a feeling, there is a relationship between the self and the other self. The relationship is not between the body and the body, it's between the self and the other self. Okay. And there are feelings or expectations of feelings in the relationship of oneself for the other self. Okay, there are some feelings. In any relationship, there will be feelings and there will be expectation of feelings. Now, we say that the proposal that we are looking at here is, in order to have harmony in the family, like in between oneself and another self, if we can identify those feelings, right, a set of feelings, which if they are recognized and if they are, expressed to the other person, if it will lead to mutual happiness, okay, so that will lead to harmony in the family. Okay, so the proposal here is again that there are definite feelings. Okay, there are feelings which can be recognized. There are definite feelings, and these 9 feelings are being proposed. If these 9 feelings are fulfilled, it will lead to mutual happiness. Okay? So these 9 feelings are the following: trust, respect, affection, care, guidance, reverence, glory, gratitude, love. Okay, just think about these 9 feelings we're talking about. Now, when we talk of these 9 terms, it may give rise to some definitions or understanding in your mind. Keep that aside for a while, or you can, even if you think about it, you will find that these 9 feelings, the words, when you hear these 9 words, they will give you certain understanding. So with this understanding, do you feel that these feelings are naturally acceptable to you? Yes? Can we say that these feelings are naturally acceptable to you? Hello? Yes? Hello? Answers, please.
Yeah, yes, ma'am.
Yes, okay. Now, when you live with these feelings, will it lead to your happiness? Right? It will lead to your happiness. Okay? I'm assuming that you're saying yes. Okay, I'm going to proceed based on that. So when you express these feelings to the other, will it lead to the happiness of the other person? If somebody expresses these feelings to you, it will make you happy. When you express these feelings to the other, it make the other happy. Right? So if that is acceptable, let's move forward. Okay, now we look at what is the meaning of each of these feelings. Okay, now again I'm giving a set of proposals, a set of definitions for each of these terms. Okay, let's understand it from that perspective. Okay, trust we say is a fundamental feeling. Okay, so if you look at this list here, trust to love. Okay, so trust we say is the fundamental feeling, and love we say is the ultimate feeling. Okay, so let's understand each of these. Okay, trust is to be assured. Okay, to be assured of what? Trust is to be assured that the other intends my happiness and prosperity. Now remember that the basic proposal was everybody wants to be happy and prosperous. Okay, so trust is to be assured that the other, in a relationship we have yourself and the other, right? So trust is to be assured that the other intends my happiness and prosperity. Okay. The word intents there is very important. So to understand that, let us just do a simple exercise. Okay, I want all of you to please pay attention to this. 4 simple questions which will really help us to understand this concept of trust. Okay. Now, verify on the basis of your natural acceptance. What is naturally acceptable to you? I want to make myself happy. Okay, 1A. 2A, I want to make the other happy. Okay. Third question, the other wants to make himself or herself happy. Fourth question, the other wants to make me happy. Okay. I have a volunteer who can give me yes, no for these 4 questions. I want to make myself happy. Yes?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes. I want to make the other happy.
Yes.
Natural
Yes.
acceptance. Yes. The other wants to make himself or herself happy.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes. He wants to make me happy.
Obviously, yes.
Obviously, yes. Natural acceptance, yes. But often, when we ask this question, many of us have a question mark over there. Okay. When you talk for yourself, you always say the other wants to make himself or herself happy is fine. Whether the other wants to make me happy, a question mark normally comes in that case. Okay. Now another set of 4 questions. Now this you verify on the basis of your competence. Okay, of actually what is happening. Okay, your competence to do something, ability to do these things. I am able to make myself always happy. Okay, first point, I'm able to make myself always happy.
No, ma'am.
Okay, second point, I am able to make the others always happy. Third,
What?
the other is able to make himself or herself always happy. Fourth, the other is able to make me always happy. Okay, please think about it. I'm able to make myself always happy. Yes, no? There's a question mark there.
Not
I
always.
hope all 4 are no.
All 4 are question mark.
Yes,
Able to
ma'am.
make the others always happy, question mark. Other is able to make himself always happy, question mark. Other is able to make me always happy, double question mark. Right? Now, if you look at this, look at what we have on the right side and on the left side. On the right side, we talk about what we are able to do. You know, it's about what you are, what I'm able to do now. This is what I am. Okay. Left side, what we talked about is what would I like, right? What I really want to be. Okay. So what you really want to be is based on your natural acceptance. That's your intention. Okay. On the right side, what we're talking about is our competence. Often what happens is that when I'm evaluating myself, when I'm talking about myself, I evaluate myself based on my intention. Whereas when I look at the other person, I always evaluate the other person based on their competence. I'll give you an example for this. Okay. So let's say you just picked up a glass of water, a glass. Okay, you bring it. Okay, there is the glass falls down. Water goes. Glass breaks. Okay. If you are carrying the glass and the same thing happens, you will say the glass broke by accident. Okay. If it is somebody else, let's say it was your child that was bringing up a bottle and the glass fell down. The immediate response will be, "What chitiya? Did you break it? You broke the glass." When I break it, or rather when it happens with me, it is always, it breaks by accident. Okay. But when it happens due to somebody else, we say the other person broke it. It was their action. That action itself is what we take as their intention. So when we talk about ourselves, why do we say that the glass broke by accident? Because when you're talking about yourself, you're talking from the perspective of your intention. You did not intend to break the glass, right? It was lack of competence. You were not able to hold it properly. It slipped, it fell down, something happened, right? Lack of competence is what led to the glass breaking. Whereas, so with respect to myself, I am looking at it as I didn't have the intention of breaking. It was only lack of competence. But when looking at the other person, I always judge them based on their competence. I say you broke the glass. Right? I don't say your glass fell from your hand by accident. Often we don't do that. Right? Similarly, with respect to myself, we always say I really tried hard to reach on time if I come late. Whereas when the other person comes late, we say, oh, he always comes late or she always comes late. So I always make mistakes by accident, but the other makes mistakes intentionally. Okay, this is how we look at it. Reason we do this is because when I'm judging myself, I evaluate myself on my intention, whereas I evaluate the other person on their competence. And I conclude about their intention based on their competence. Okay, which is why you see in this phrase, right? The other is able to make me always happy. I have a double question mark because I'm looking at their competence. The other wants to make me also, often have a question mark because I'm looking at whether they want to make me happy based on whether he's really able to make me happy or not. Okay, so this difference between intention and competence, if we understand, okay, and if you start evaluating the other person on their intention, not on competence, okay, that is what leads to trust. And when there is a doubt on intention, okay, it leads to irritation, anger, condemning the other person, shouting at the other person. All these things happen because of doubt on intention. If you don't doubt the intention, okay, you trust on intention, right? Then that leads to a mutual happiness. Okay, let's look at this. To be assured that the other intends my happiness and prosperity is trust. Trust on intention. The intention is important here. Okay, when there is trust on intention, you feel related to the other person. And there's an absence of trust on intention. There's lack of assurance that the other intends my happiness and prosperity. That leads to doubt, fear, opposition, right? All kinds of problems can happen in the relationship because of that. So trust, we say, is the fundamental feeling, which is trust on intention. Okay. So trust on, so once you trust on intention, the other wants to make me happy. Yes. If I have a trust on intention, there'll be a definite tick mark there. The other is able to make me always happy could be a question mark because the competence may not be there, but that should not affect your intention. Okay. Now, when you have trust on intention, we said we feel related to each other. And when you feel related to each other, what happens? When you find that the other is lacking in competence, you facilitate the other to improve his or her competence affectionately without getting irritated or angry. So your child brings that glass falls down, it breaks. You don't shout at the child. Instead, you're able to tell the child, oh, you made a mistake, you didn't hold it properly, whatever, right? You remove whatever, you take away everything, and you teach the child how to do it more with competence, in a competent manner, right? Without being irritated, right? Okay. So if you have the trust on intention, this will happen. If you don't have trust on intention, what happens is that when the other person is lacking competence, we react, we show irritation, we show anger. Okay, so much so that even sometimes breakups of relationships take place. Okay, when you have trust on intention, you will be able to live with responsibility. Okay, this is a very, very fundamental proposal. So if you're able to understand and appreciate this proposal, you will find it makes a lot of difference in your entire dealings. Okay, in your life as such. Okay, so it's a very fundamental thing I would like you to understand. So you can think about it. How many % you have trust on intention in your life? Okay, a continuous, unconditional trust without having a feeling of opposition, getting irritated or angry. In case the other is lacking in competence, you have this feeling of responsibility to improve his or her competence. Okay, if you increase in this number progress or decrease in this number progress, obviously increase in this number will be progress. Okay, that was about trust. Now let's look at the other relationships, other feelings that we talked about the relationship also. Some we'll take a look at respect a little more closely. The others will just go through it a little faster. So, respect, again, another very important proposal. Respect, we say, is right evaluation. Okay? Respect is right evaluation. So what do we mean by that? So right evaluation is on the basis of the self, on the capabilities of the self. Okay. So what we mean here is our purpose is the same. Our natural acceptance is the same. So what do you mean by purpose and natural acceptance? Just as I want to be continuously happy, so does the other. Right? Purpose, we said, right? Continuously happy is our purpose and prosperity. So does the other. Okay. Now, our program, that is our effort to do this, is the same. Just as I can live happily by understanding and living in harmony at all levels, so it is for the other, right? So the process that can be followed for achieving that purpose is the same for me and the other, for the self and the other. Okay. Similarly, our potential is the same. Just as I have this process of desire, thought, and selection that is happening continuously in me, which will help me to identify what are my desires, what is my thought, how do I select one of these thoughts, how do I, execute those thoughts. Just as I have all these things happening in me, so it is in the other person, right? So just as I can understand, so can the other person. So the minimum content of respect is to be able to see and accept that the other is similar to me. Okay. Minimum content of respect is to accept that the other is similar to me. Okay. Because our purpose, our program, our potential are all the same. Okay. The other is similar to me. Often what we do is we over evaluate. We evaluate somebody or something for more than what it is. Sometimes we under evaluate. We evaluate it for less than what it is. Sometimes we otherwise evaluate. Okay. For example, with respect to your child itself, sometimes you have your child is there at home, and if some friend of yours comes and you say, oh, my son or daughter, is capable of doing anything, so good at all these things. You'll find that the child is very, very uncomfortable. Case number 2, another scenario. Okay, your friend comes and say, oh, my son, daughter, good for nothing. You're evaluating for less than what they are capable of. Your son or daughter is going to feel miserable again. Otherwise evaluation, right? Scenario 3, son, daughter, somebody you look and say, my son or donkey is my son or daughter is a donkey, right? That is otherwise evaluation. Now, all these 3 are disrespect because the evaluation is not right. Whenever the evaluation is not right, it is disrespect. You can check for yourself in every interaction with others, whether it is respect or disrespect. Okay. If you observe, you'll find that often, right, in our day-to-day activities, it will be one form of the other of disrespect that we are doing. Okay. And the disrespect that we do can happen due to various factors. Could be because of some differentiation. The differentiation could be based on body, physical facilities, or beliefs. So it could be based on body. You can say gender based. Okay, man, woman, that kind of differentiation. So disrespect because of that. Age based. Okay, younger to me, older to me. Okay, respect, disrespect because of that. Race, physical strength. Somebody is stronger, you give them more respect. Okay, that could be reason. Another is physical facilities. Somebody has more wealth. This person has a post. Okay, my boss, therefore I have to give him respect. If you're not my boss, I will stop respecting him. Obviously not the right thing to do, right? Disrespect only. Beliefs. I belong to a different belief, right? Belong to a different sect. So I don't respect somebody who has a different belief. All these are causes of differentiation, causes of disrespect. And differentiation leads to various problems like resentments, protests, right? Generation gap, black-white problem, powerful oppressed, rich-poor problem, communism, capitalism, all kinds of problems are all caused by this, some form of disrespect. Okay. When you respect, you evaluate on the basis of self. When you differentiate, you evaluate on the basis of body, physical facilities, or belief, which could come because of some precondition. Okay. In respect, you look at the other is like me. In differentiation, you say the other is different from me. So naturally, what happens when you respect and you feel that the other is like me, you feel complementary to the other person. Okay. When you feel that the other is different from me, you compete with the other person. Okay, there's a difference between complementary and competition, right? When you're complementary with the other person, what you do is, if you have more understanding than the other person, you live with responsibility with the other, and then you facilitate the other. If the other, so naturally what will happen, if the other has more understanding than me, then I'm willing to learn from the other person. Okay. In competition, what will happen? You're always making an effort to accentuate the difference, to manipulate, to exploit the other, right? Because you want to be better than the other person. Okay, so you always look at how can I put that person down? How can I move up? So you're always looking at increasing the gap between the two of you. Whereas when you're complementary, you decrease the gap between the two of you, right? So which will lead to harmony. Obviously, complementariness will lead to harmony. That will be living with responsibility. Okay, and the feeling of being okay. So this is with respect to the term respect. Okay, now let's look at the other feelings. We talked about trust, we talked about respect. Now we look at affection. Affection is the feeling of acceptance of the other as one's relative. This feeling of being related to the other. That is affection. Okay, that is affection. Check on the basis of your natural acceptance if you want to be related to none, one, many, or everyone. Okay, feeling if you say that I don't want to be related to anyone, that means you want to be in opposition to all, that's normally not the case, right? Nobody wants to be in that kind of situation. The feeling of being related to one or many, okay, that is normally called as affection. If you have the feeling that you want to be related to all, right? The feeling of being related to all is love. Now you can understand why I said love, we said, is an ultimate feeling in the relationship, right? You want to have this feeling of relatedness with everyone. That is love. Okay, so we've looked at affection, we've looked at love. Now let's look at the other ones. Care and guidance. Okay. Now care is defined as the feeling of responsibility and commitment towards nurturing and protecting the body of the other. So mother, let's say, taking care of the child's bodily needs. Okay, the mother makes sure that the child requires food at this time, provides the food. Requires has to be given a bath at this time, gives that bath. All that is taking care of the needs of the body. Now, feeling of responsibility and commitment towards ensuring right understanding and right feelings in the other is the need of the I. Along with providing food for the child, if the mother is also talking about what it means to respect someone, what it means to trust someone, what it means to be in harmony, right? If you're talking about the right understanding and right feelings also, that is guidance. Okay, care and guidance. Two aspects. Another feeling that we talk about is reverence, which is the feeling of acceptance for excellence. Now we have to understand what we mean by excellence here. Excellence basically is understanding of the harmony and living in that harmony at all 4 levels. Okay, remember that excellence and competition are not similar again. In excellence, you always help to bring the other person to your level. In competition, you are typically hindering the other person from reaching to his level. Again, in excellence, we look at the other is like me. In special, you look at the other person is different from me. Okay. So when your focus is on excellence, you are doing right utilization, you are sharing. Okay, when you feel that I'm special, your feeling is always that I will hold. I am different from the others. Okay, that's the feeling. That is about reverence. Next is glory. Glory is the feeling for those who have worked for excellence. So you have an unconditional acceptance for following that person's footsteps. Okay, you can treat them as an example and you don't mind following their footsteps. That is glory. Okay. Gratitude, a very, very important feeling. The feeling of for those who have worked for my. Okay. Often, there are in fact many interesting theories now which talk about how the brain works from a very scientific viewpoint, and they talk about how this feeling of gratitude can actually enhance your overall well-being, because your brain itself becomes so much better when you express this feeling of gratitude. So gratitude is the feeling for those who have worked from excellence, and it is the expression of the gratitude. Often what happens is we don't express gratitude. Okay, this is very, very important. How many times we have really expressed the gratitude for the people who have helped us? There are so many people who are helping us on a day-to-day basis. Okay, if we are able to express that gratitude, express that feeling, that will lead to a lot of harmony, and it leads to a lot of well-beingness in each of us. Okay, so that's a very important thing to look at. So once we have all these feelings, okay, it will lead to harmony in the family. In every relationship that we have, if it leads to harmony in the family, it will also lead to harmony in the world as such. That is, we are talking about going from family to world family. So basically what we talk about, if you have harmony within your family, it will lead to harmony within your community, within your village, or within your local area, within the city, within the country, within the world, right? The entire world as a whole undivided unit, you can look at it as everybody living in harmony. Of course, that would be the ultimate goal. Okay. So we talked about harmony in individual, harmony in family. Now let's look at harmony in society. So in the society, when we talk about what we actually need, okay, the human target as such is, we need to have right understanding and right feelings in the individual, prosperity in every family, fearlessness or trust in society, and coexistence in nature. Okay, this is basically what you need to have. For this, what we need to have is that each of this should lead to the other. Okay, often what happens is, because of a gross misunderstanding, because of the understanding that assumptions that money is everything and we need to only accumulate physical facilities. So what happens is physical facilities accumulate only in a few individuals. Assumptions because of money is everything in every individual. What it leads to is lot of consumption, working for profit, sensual pleasure, right? And this leads to domination and exploitation in society, which leads to terrorism and war. This leads to mastery and exploitation over nature, leading to resource depletion and pollution. Gross misunderstanding that we have, that I want to master nature, that I want to dominate, that I want to accumulate. Okay, all these misunderstandings lead to a disharmony in the society, leading to terrorism, war, and so on. So what is it that we need to do? To understand this, one way of looking at it is that you can look at the human order with respect to these 5 dimensions. Education leading to commitment for right living. Health leading to control. Okay. Production and work. Justice, protection, exchange, and storage. All these talk about the various things that should happen in the society in a harmonious manner. Okay. I'm not going to go into the details of this. We don't have too much time. But these are 5 dimensions in which you can look at the functions of the society. And you can see how these aspects can be carried out in a harmonious manner. Okay. There are some proposals for that. We will not go into those details now. Now let's look at harmony with nature. What do we mean by harmony with nature? So this is a very important topic because this is something that's affecting us right away. Okay. So basically what we need to understand is, what do we think about the underlying design of nature? Do we think that struggle is inherent in nature? Or do we think that struggle is not inherent in nature? There's a provision for mutual fulfillment in nature. Okay. Let's look at this. Okay. Often we find that nature has been designed to fulfill mutually. Okay. So if you take nature as a whole, the existence as a whole, you can look at it as 4 orders: plant, material order, plant order, animal order, and human order. If you look at it as these 4, so material order consists of soil, water, air, etc. Plant order is all your plants, animal order is animals and birds, human order is the human being. Now, if you look at the relationship that exists between the plant order and material order, the plants take from the soil, water, air, and so on, and they give back to it. Okay, there's a cyclic process over there. Similarly, between material order and animal order, there is a cyclic process. Between plant order and animal order, there's a cyclic process. The moment human order comes in between, what happens is that we take from plant order, we take from material order, we take from animal order, but how much are we giving back? Are we ensuring a cyclic process? There's a question mark over there, right? That is our disharmony with nature. Okay. So what do we need to do? We need to have the harmony with nature so that we don't get into resource depletion, pollution, and so on. What is resource depletion? It basically means that the resource is used at a rate which is faster than the rate at which it can be produced in nature. Pollution is the product is such that it cannot return back to the cycle in nature, or it is again produced at a rate which is faster than the rate at which it can return to the nature. Okay. So how do we take care of this? So all we need to do therefore is we need to come up with whatever things we do, we need to make sure that there is a cyclic process. That is what will lead to harmony in nature, right? So all the 4 units, when we talk of harmony with nature, with all the 4 units, right, there has to be harmony. And there is a possibility for mutual fulfillment is inherently there in nature. We don't have to create it. We just have to live accordingly. So just make sure that you don't disturb nature's harmony, right? That if we are able to bring in, that will lead to harmony in nature. So we can see that so many problems, unprecedented rains, the kind of things that we have, all these are things because we have played with the harmony in nature, right? So we need to make the corrections for that. So we need to be responsible for doing these things. Okay. So a summary of this content that I have provided with respect to the universal human values. Basically, all we have said is we have to work towards harmony at all 4 levels: at the individual level, family level, society level, and the level of nature. And this will help us to ensure the continuity of mutual happiness and mutual prosperity through a process of self-verification. And this is the goal of our value education. And this, if we understand, and if this we are able to also pass on to our students, we can see that we and our students will be able to live a more mutually fulfilling life. Right? So coming back to our mentoring, We started off with mentoring, right? So let me just conclude with how UHV is helpful for mentoring. When we do mentoring with this UHV principles in mind, okay, or with this UHV as part of us, what it does is it helps to advance not just the educational growth of the mentor or of the mentee or the student, but the personal growth. Okay. Now we saw that different students have different requirements, right? So what happens is when you approach it with UHV, you understand the complementary nature of things, right? You understand their competence. You understand that the intention is not wrong, right? So difference between intention and competence, the moment we are able to do that, you feel related to the other person. When you feel related, you are approachable and available for your students, right? Similarly, you evaluate the students, do not judge them. We evaluate, as teachers, we have to evaluate, but do not judge them. So if you don't judge, students don't feel intimidated. So they will come to you, right? Even if they have a problem, they're able to approach you, right? So we identified the difference between intention and competence, both in workplace as well as with our students, right? So build trust. So we can be proactive with students who are timid, okay, but you don't have to thrust your opinion on them. We can be aware of our own biases so that we don't pass on those biases to the students. So very importantly, encourage cooperation and excellence, not competition, right? If this we can do, then we would have been very successful in doing our mentoring. A small story is what I would like to share with you. Just a small video. Many of you might have seen this video also, but I would like you to see this.
Ma'am, the device audio is not coming.
Oh, okay. It is only music. So,
Okay.
so yeah. So that's actually a car insurance video. Okay, so I'm not advertising for Thai insurance, but that that video is very, very meaningful and kind of almost summarizes the various things that we would like to emphasize on. Okay, so yeah, so that's where we are. So thank you. So the reference for this content basically is a foundation course on human values and professional ethics by Gaur Singhal Vagaria. And it's based on something called the philosophy of coexistence. So that's the content. Okay. I can take any questions now. I think, sorry, I've probably taken 5 minutes more. But
No problem. Participants, queries from your side and also gratitude from your side. Participants.
Yeah.
Dr. Lata ma'am have commented something. Ma'am, are
Yeah,
you there?
Yeah, that's a comment, right?
Yeah.
Nice presentation, excellent presentation, made us realize who we are, limitations of human nature, self-evaluation, so many other perspectives of mentoring. Surely you'll pass this message to our students. Thank you, thank you. Oh, her mic audio is not working. So for those of you who have not attended this course, please understand that it is now becoming mandatory from AICTE that everybody has to go through this FDP on universal human values. Forget the fact that they made it mandatory. I think it is something which is definitely useful for us. See, I have conducted this program from 2018 for many faculty. And when I meet them now, many of them give me this feedback that they say that it has helped me in my life, firstly. Okay, so automatically that will carry over to your students and to whoever you're interacting with. Okay, so definitely this is my request to all of you. So please attend the workshops. These workshops are again being conducted online. We have almost every month 4 workshops are being conducted, both in English and in Hindi. So alternate weeks we have English and Hindi workshops being conducted by the NCCIP team from AICTE. By the way, I'm not part of the NCCIP team now. I was part of it earlier. Okay, in my introduction, they said that I'm part of the team now, not a part of the team now. I'm part of only the UHV coordination at Anna University. Anyway, so there is a team there which is working day and night almost to make sure this content reaches all the faculty. Okay, so please register for those workshops. It's available on the UHV, on the AICTE website. So register for this workshop and attend this program. Once you attend the program, because basically the content that I gave you now is just a glimpse, right? You will get a chance to think about it, reflect on it and bring it as part of your life. So that if you're able to do, you'll find that it makes a lot of difference in your dealing with everybody. Like that feeling of relatedness, that's something that you'll definitely be able to develop. And once that happens, I think almost everything will change, right? So that's something that definitely can.
So thank you very much, ma'am. This topic is the need of the hour today. So we are hearing so many incidents here and there. So these kind of information really make the society or as an individual to come up in a different form in our own life and the life around us. So thank you so much, ma'am. So participants, would you like to say something? So they are all giving their comments in the chat box.
Yeah. Good. Yeah, can read out comments from the chat box. Very good presentation, nice presentation, excellent presentation. Thank you. As per my side, good FTP, and I want to thank a lot. Okay. Thank you, Professor. Right. Yes, I think congratulations, Vidya. Let me congratulate you also. I was also able to attend.
Thank you, ma'am. Thanks a lot.
Not fully, some portions, and whatever I attended was definitely useful for me. I think I also got a lot from this workshop, and thank you again.
Actually, I have to thank you, ma'am. You are an